These are people's lives. There's none of that
True.
here. And I'm sure you got a ton of them. And I'm sure once you put those stories there, these women will just love to consume because they're going to live there. The way they're going to buy your product is they're going to live through these other women's stories, not testimonials, stories. Hey, Joan.
Hi, good evening.
Are you in the Philippines?
Yes, how do you know?
Well, A, they're always happy. That's a dead giveaway. And then B, they have tropical backgrounds usually.
Oh, I did not know that.
Hey, Alaa, how are you doing?
Looks like you're at an airport.
Yes, I'm in the Portland airport and we're at gate E12 and that's where the flight is departing in an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Using your time to maximum advantage. Hi, Joan.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm here for you.
Okay. So I filled out like that Blizz metrics stuff, but I didn't know if it was going to be used for a quick audit. It was very comprehensive, which I assumed it's used for other types of audits. But so I don't know if you got any like report or any information from the information that was supplied.
Well, we can, but I want to cover whatever specifically you want to look at.
Okay. Well, and if Joan has any questions, she can certainly ask. But I guess I wanted to maybe talk about what we had talked about in the AI conference. So historically, just to take a step back, so Joan has done a great job of putting out posts, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. What am I missing, Joan? Pinterest. Probably like three to four posts a week. And I think they're very good because we hadn't been posting for a while and we started 4 or 5 weeks ago or so. But I think they're very like introspective.
Okay.
They're all about kind of life on record. We do talk about, couples getting married, which is great, and we'll occasionally highlight like a particular recording that was left. If I was somebody that was like reading it, I would get kind of bored, and I think for the most part, we're not really seeing any, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joan, any like big influx of subscribers. And I have this kind of like post-purchase questionnaire, and I think most of our revenue comes from either Google PMax ads or we've got some affiliate marketing setups. So I think, and if you want to see some of the posts that we've done, I can share my screen, but maybe we can just talk about kind of strategy moving forward.
So we had lunch a couple weeks ago and you were telling me of the PMax campaigns that you were bidding on like audio guest book or terms like that were, I want to say your cost, what was your cost per sale? Like $67, something like that?
Yeah, so my ROAS is like around 200%. And the PMax campaigns, as you know, it's like YouTube and it's a lot of display stuff. It's search stuff as well. The cost could be like in 80, 90, lower hundreds.
Yeah.
All in.
But if that's a 2 ROAS, that means a purchase value of $200 or so, assuming no kind of like repeat. Imagine people get married too many times, although there's referrals. I was thinking the nature of your product with Life on Record is less about the keyword, even though you are trying to do audio guest book, and it's more about people that are involved in planning weddings, I would think, because they do that all the time. And thus one very strong referral, one very strong fan can be worth a lot of money if you're targeting who they are as opposed to targeting the keyword.
Yeah, and I do have audiences set up across PMax and just started with Pinterest, where it is like wedding planning and there's like a lot of sub-wedding planning keywords. I should say audiences, not keywords.
But that's okay. But we want to make sure we're targeting them as people. The thing is, if you mix in consumers, the quality of that conversion is much less because it's not like if you have content where you're interviewing other wedding planners on their craft, which isn't necessarily around audio guest books or the device you have that, people rent or the rotary old telephone or all that kind of stuff. But you talk to them and that appeals to other wedding planners because they're in the trade, and you approach the lighthouses or the other figureheads of wedding planning, and maybe whoever, I'm sure there's like a wedding planning conference or magazine or whatever it is. I would think that'd be your strongest. I mean, it's because wedding planning by far is the top use of your device, right?
You mean like wedding planners as an occupation or by people that are doing wedding planning?
Targeting the audience of people that professionally do wedding planning.
Yeah, so most of the people that buy it are just like couples that don't have a wedding planner. I do have some wedding planners that'll do it on behalf of a couple. And actually, they're a little bit more of a pain in the because I can't talk to the couple directly, like they're always the intermediary.
Right, because they want to control the whole thing. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But you would figure they would be, if you had a couple of them, they would be your strongest ally more than the direct to consumer, because then you have to have that conversation over and over and over again, right?
Right, that's true. Yeah. And I do have a few venues that like consistently refer me to their customers.
Especially if people are seeing pictures. I mean, I feel like your marketing is built in because if people, people always want to look back at their wedding, the guests want to look and, re-experience. Why wouldn't that be I would figure the referral thing would be the core of your marketing, right? Like the repeat thing of the wedding planners or just from people who go to that venue and they see like, I could have it decorated this way, or I could have this kind of food, or I could have these things to make a really special moment for the guests. They're like, oh, why don't I do that too? Because they already see it at the same venue, right?
Right. Yeah.
And if I look at the site doesn't really show any of that because it shows like this fake graffiti and then a bunch of text. And then there's a little, what would look like an amplifier, this little, this blue thing. So there's no sense of a wedding. There's no sense of a human. There's no story. You have this thing look through hundreds of reviews, but it's really just like 5 or 6 sentences of text. And now I feel like I'm buying a piece of electronics, introducing on record keepsake speaker, like someone who's in the mode of thinking about their wedding and, the female who I know stereotypically does the planning, she's thinking about what it means and how it feels and what the different experiences are. I feel like this site is antithetical to that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it's something, so it's interesting because all the paid ads go to like on the site, if you click on the weddings link,
yeah,
all the paid ads go to like that landing page, which kind of talks a little bit more and has more kind of wedding imagery. But you're right, it's kind of
blue
like,
on blue. Okay, now this is the one you showed me before with the rotary phones.
Right. Yeah, like the homepage you kind of struggle with because it's used for all these different types of events, including weddings.
Yeah, but start with one. Start with the main one, right? If the wedding's the main one, show these people using it and leaving stories and the happy, like real, not UGs or not like the stock art stuff, but real. If I came to this page, create an unforgettable experience, I mean, that could be a strip club, a bachelor party, a steak dinner, a Valentine's Day gift. I mean, this could be anything. This doesn't easily gather heartfelt toasts and like you're saying this, but what if you just had a real picture,
Right.
Split test, right? There's many ways to do that.
That's a good point. And Joan did kind of create a mock-up of another home page, but it does have stock image. And so that mock-up basically like there's a picture for the wedding part, the picture for the celebration, but it does use stock images.
Yeah, real. You want to feature real stories. Your SEO has really fallen down over the last year. I mean, part of it's going to be seasonality, perhaps, but this is the only page that has traffic, probably. Well, because of this audio guest book from an organic search standpoint. I think we looked at this briefly, right? We sat down and looked at your data briefly. Or at least I remember looking at this before when we were in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
None of these other things, like where are the stories? I would love to. And there's no, I mean, the chicken and egg is because there's no stories. You have one page that gets all the traffic and the other ones don't get anything. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you don't have enough brand strength yet because you're still a really small company because it's mainly you, that life on record is not getting much volume. You're having to buy your traffic, right? Because you're not getting people talking about you.
Right. Yeah.
And your name too. I search your name, I get someone else. So it's like either your company name or your name, the branding isn't there.
Right.
So I feel like this is an easy win because you are, instead of like someone else selling a random product or service, you are positioned at the most concentrated, focused, happy moment of people's lives, right? If you build in, I think we talked about this, but some kind of like sequencing, just so it doesn't feel like, okay, we'll ship it to you and now you ship it back to me. But there's other parts along the way to, like, I think about, what's his face? TJ, the olive oil hunter guy, right? Who sat next to us.
Yeah.
Remember, he sat right next to you. He wears the hat and he's got the olive oil thing, right? And I signed up for his thing when he told us about it. And I've been getting emails and things in the mail and all this kind of stuff nonstop. It's to the point, it's like, all right. I think I've heard enough about olive oil by now,
Right. Yeah.
But it's good. It's like well written. You can tell it's like, I can tell it was written by, professional copywriters or whatever. And most consumers wouldn't know that, but
You're absolutely right. They don't have like an email sequence and they should.
but did that told stories, your digital marketing, you don't even need to do any of this other stuff. I mean, fine, keep the paid ads if it's, if it's too is profitable for you. But I would think it's pretty straightforward with a lot of the low-hanging fruit you have.
So if we could like quickly go through the low-hanging fruit. So like if one of it was the email response thing, like what kind of stories would you do? Would they be customer stories? Would they be what kind of stories?
I would tell a few customer stories because that would be 80/20 amplifying what's already working,
Uh-huh.
the couples themselves. And then I would have to think it's worth a little bit more effort to try to build relationships with the wedding planners, unless there's just some reason they don't want to work with you. Because if you nail that and you have someone who's a well-known wedding planner, that
Mhm.
just opens up everything. Because I mean, what percent of people, I mean, maybe increasingly now that, the girls doing the planning, but most people are using a wedding planner, right?
Maybe at the higher cost weddings, but like my daughter is getting married and like I think of all her friends and only one had a wedding planner.
I guess I live in a different world.
Right. Yeah. You live in LA, right? Yeah. Do you live in LA or do you live
I'm from LA. I still will say LA, but I fly around so much. I live nowhere.
right, yeah. And I did have some like interviews with wedding planners because I wasn't quite sure if they were motivated through a commission, through money. Because a long time ago, I joined the Association of Bridal Consultants.
Yeah.
And like a commission on my product really isn't that much money, but I think I've talked to enough where it's kind of like, if you have a good product and they're able to offer something unique to their clients and they can, stand behind it and you're trustworthy.
Think of it this way. When you're running kind of a product slash service, when you have multi-channel, you basically are looking at your affiliate cost to not exceed your cost of PPC. So if it's, $80, $90, you can easily pay the affiliate piece of that because it's the same thing, right? I don't
Right.
care. I mean, it's the same thing. We're acquiring a customer at this cost. And I think, so some people are financially motivated. Other wedding planners, they want to be, I mean, it ties them with your USP of providing that unique experience. So if you started the Unique Weddings podcast and you interview these wedding planners on all the different ways to be able to create a unique experience in what they've done, you're elevating them, making them look good. That's good for your SEO and social because it shows you're associated with these wedding planners. And then after you've done like 15 or 20 of these, which are like 20-minute Zoom interviews, which is nothing, a friend Joan here can take each of those and turn them into a chapter in a book. And now you publish the book. Like Perry and I published a book, right?
Right. Right.
And then that establishes your name. Because I search for Alaa Ghatit, I can't find you. There's like all these other things that show up, right? Have you searched your name to see that?
I thought I did show up. Let me do a quick search now.
I'll show you. I'll search for your here. Sephora.
My daughter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm that second one down. The entrepreneur.
And then is this you? Some sort of lawsuit?
That is actually TDK, who like they're a big multinational corporation. They infringed on my life and record trademark. It took over a year, but I got them to license it from me.
Okay. But I mean, there's so much more that we could, like, there's
Right.
not much here,
Yeah.
See what AI says. Okay. So this knows what you told me before. Yeah. But I just think, I think it's really simple. The low-hanging fruit is you just don't have these stories. And, maybe Miss Joan here I guess you have it if you on the wedding one, but this is, people are coming in on this one. Well, PPC, they're coming on another one. But when people have weddings, they're just overwhelmed with so many choices. Everyone's telling them whatever. And so it's just, when people are overwhelmed with choice, they go based on what their friends recommend as a way to cut down the noise, right? And it's a filter mechanism. So, this balloons thing, this is so stock art. This is anything but unique and one of a kind. Like it says one of a kind, the text says one of a kind, but this website does not convey unique,
Right.
special.
Right.
Your loved one special, then why do you have the stock art balloon thing, Now there's a purchase button. Like I don't think people are going to be incentivized to click on that. I mean,
Right.
why would you click on it?
Yeah.
And the stock art thing, or the what are these things called? Explainer video.
Explainer. Yeah.
But then that's also the same thing because it's not real. It's cartoons. I mean, that's
Mhm.
just the first thing I think about. Now it's like, okay, here's a product. It's like a iPod. What color do you want? Right. I would still be focusing on the stories, not on what color you would have the thing in. Rechargeable battery, high quality sound. As people come down here, they're not thinking about the battery and the high quality sound and is it made of metal. They've not been sold that this is the thing.
Right.
Me as an outsider looking at this,
Right. For signing up, for the email sequence.
Yeah.
Like what would you think would be a good lead magnet? And Joan and I have kind of talked through some ideas,
I
but
think it comes through the lead magnet. I mean, what's the thing that's someone who's already busy and knows if they put an email address, they're going to get hit with, everyone knows what happens when you put an email address and it's going to start hitting you with all these messages. Well, for me to be willing to do that, it has to be from someone I know and respect. So who in the wedding planner space, or a celebrity or somebody who's used your product, like, oh, I trust that person. Okay. Or it has to be, 10 ways to, I mean, these guys who are DIY, they probably have a lower budget, and they think they're wasting money if they're hiring a wedding planner. So if that's true, I'm just guessing, you tell me. But if that's true, then, 15 ways to have an incredible wedding on a low budget or something like that, right?
Yeah. And some people, I mean, they'll like the average cost if you get the vintage phone is like 350, and it can go up to $700. So I mean, it's not little, but it's not
Real, not the Chinese plastic ones that you were telling me about. And of
right.
course, if the woman's doing this, she's probably going to want the real thing, even though the Chinese knockoff one is probably almost as good, right?
I would say no, but yeah.
But as far as me as a consumer, I'd say, well, you know
Right.
what, it probably looks about the same. I mean, I'm sure yours functions better and is better in many ways that, if I did some research, I'd find out,
Yeah, but you're right. In the end, you're still getting the voices. You're still, capturing those memories.
Yeah. I would just love for there to be one of these women. It could even be, I mean, I love the real stories. I think there's nothing better than actually doing a good job with your product or service and just letting that speak. But even if you had these two women that were talking to each other, and then Joan says, you know what I really like about, it's almost like I can picture like the QVC when they're like selling stuff through those infomercials, and the two women are like talking to each other about the piece of jewelry, or I can kind of see that, I feel, because then then you feel like you're part of that conversation, like you're sitting at Starbucks together and you're talking about this thing. Yeah, this phone, look at how cool it is. And look at it. Let me just show you how to use it. It's really easy. You press this thing, you record it, and then here's how, the bride is able to get all of them. And isn't this this is so much better than a crappy guest book and whatever.
Mhm.
And we actually have their voice, and then we can play it back later, and we can show the kids, we can put it on the internet. I mean, whatever it is, right?
Right. Yeah.
I just feel like a QVC kind of person talking about it would just do wonders, way better than this. Oh, mom really liked it, and you have these cartoons. Like that just doesn't. I know I'm like beating the dead horse, but when you told me about this and I went to your site a couple weeks ago, that was the first thing. I'm not planning a wedding, so I'm not in this demographic, but I've looked at a lot of landing pages and I've analyzed a lot of strategy, and I feel like that's my opinion. I mean, for me, that's like in your face. Like, how can you not do this, right?
Right.
Maybe you're like so close to it that you don't see
Yeah.
it. She hasn't said anything. I wonder what she thinks. She doesn't want to say anything. Okay, fine.
Oh, if you wanted to say something, Joan, you're on mute.
Well, I agree. Actually, that's one of the things that we try to do on social media. Like we try to put out what are the client experiences so far, what are the testimonials have been. Like we would post actual recordings of people's messages. In a way, we're trying to distinguish ourselves as the quality of the recording that we put out versus what other competitors would put up.
Joan, based on what you just said, so I imagine you've collected thousands of these stories. I don't know how many the average number of reviews or, whatever recordings you get per wedding, but imagine, you're the guest at someone's wedding. You pick up this phone or whatever, and leave a recording, and you don't know what to say because you want to say something memorable, but you don't want to be corny or generic. And what if you had an article on like the 50 most clever greetings or, tributes, or, you know what I'm saying? That would be press worthy. That would be something that the wedding planners or the bride would be interested in. And then people who are going to a wedding, like, oh, this is the kind of thing to say. This is how because you're one of 100 guests at the wedding, and you want to say something memorable. You want to be seen as clever or, heartfelt. So you're talking about this, the voice recordings and how it's special, but there's so many ways that you could show. I mean, you keep saying, the whole like, don't show me, tell me. I think that's what's missing here. This whole thing screams like, okay, you're just trying to sell me. You're telling me it's one of a kind. Why don't you show me? Why don't you show me some of these? Imagine if you had people say this, and then there's like a 5-second clip, or just something emotional or something funny. Or do you remember that day when, and then someone tells a story, right?
Right.
I feel like if you just, obviously with permission, but a lot of these people, they would love to share that because they're honoring whoever their friend is, right?
Right.
There's none of that. There's no stories in any of this. That's the biggest thing I think that's missing. I'm sure you have some reviews like, oh yeah, I loved it and it was great. And but I don't think it's as good as like the very ingredients that are being captured. That's the thing we're talking about. There's none of it's here. It's like going to a sushi place that says, puffer. There's a sushi place in my hometown. It's called Puffer Fish. And you go in and they don't have any puffer fish. You know, the puffer fish, the blowfish where like it's like supposedly poison
Yeah.
delicacy and special chefs have to be trained in a way to do it. But I went to
Right.
this sushi place because it's got a big or blowfish. Yeah. It's got the logo of the restaurant is this big, those spiky puffer fish there.
Yeah.
So you figure like that's the name of the thing. The logo is this big spiky thing, this fish thing, and you go in there and it's just got regular California rolls and stuff on the menu.
Right.
I feel
Yeah.
like you're like that too.
Yeah. No,
Up on record, one of a
totally
kind.
get it.
Here's all these balloons. Okay, where's the
Yeah.
unique stuff? Like where is it? Where is
Right.
it? Here's like the fake graffiti. I'm planning a wedding. Okay, great. Okay, here's a couple phones, but I don't see evidence. Okay, I get it. That's the product, but the story, the people, the happiness, the celebration, like, none of it is here. There's the
Right.
hearts in the background, but only $99. At this point, I don't give a shit that it's $99.
Mhm.
You haven't even warmed me up yet,
Right. Right.
You have a lot of text, but I can just tell you the way people's minds are, especially if they're of wedding age, which I know has gotten older, but if they're under 30, if they see all this text, and especially if they're viewing it on a phone, this is what they're seeing. They're not going to do this. This is like text. Where's the story? Where's you on a video saying, hey, you're trying to create a special moment for you and your soon to be husband. I'm glad you're here because you want one of these vintage phones. You can buy these cheap phones from China or these plastic ones, but I want to offer you a real one. And let me tell you what the benefit of the real one is. Let me show you. Watch. And also, because you're here, I don't want to just sell you one of these phones that you can rent. I want to tell you about some of these other tips we know because this is probably your first wedding. Maybe you've gone to a wedding or two before, but I've done this for thousands of weddings. And I want to make sure your wedding is amazing. And I'd love to give you this guide on 57 tips on how to have an amazing wedding on a budget. So just go ahead and put in your email below and I'll send it to you right now. And whether or not, you get one of these unique rotary phones where your guest can leave voice messages instead of signing the guest book from all the weddings that we've looked at. And I'm sure you've looked at lots of other weddings and lots of dresses and lots of caterers and lots of locations. There's some unique ideas in here that I think you're really going to like. I don't think it was by accident that you came here.
I think that's great. Yeah.
So I just did that right off the top, right?
Yeah.
You just had a video of me. Maybe I'm dressed a little nicer, whatever, right? But that video, if your webpage was literally just that video I made and then a little bit of landing page stuff, I think that would outperform what you have.
Mhm. Right.
It's a real person. I'm speaking to you.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I'm not the cartoon video animation showing like fake cartoon people using the phone. Like I get why you're using the explainer video, but I don't think you've established. You can say lots and lots of reviews and, oh, here's all these words. Here's words from this person. Here's words from this person. I'm not doubting those are real, but people in their mind, when they see that, they don't believe it.
Mhm.
Right? You know what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's interesting because like it's not really a web design issue because even if it went out and got like really good web designer, there's still all these
Nothing to
assets.
do with webs. It's not a technical issue. It's a lack of content. It's a strategy issue.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Web designer doesn't know anything about making weddings special or what your unique proposition is or why it's the, bride herself instead of the wedding planner. Understand the strategic angle. They understand like HTML and Elementor on WordPress, right?
Right.
And this has nothing to do with Elementor.
So the homepage, you're suggesting that maybe like today I do get like 90% of the business is weddings.
Yeah, I think you do this one optimization of the web page and tell stories, and you're most of the way there, and then just keep testing and figure out which ones, drive the most engagement and emotion. Like the biggest thing missing is just the lack of oomph from. It's got to feel special. It's got to feel like a premium. It screams the opposite of what you're saying.
Right.
To me, it seems obvious. I'm not trying to like on you, but that's just what I think. Seems
Yeah.
pretty clear to me.
Yeah, no, and the most profound things are like
Hasn't anyone else told you this? I'm surprised. Like I'm telling you this. This is
Oh, no,
like.
they have, and I've known and
But
Jonah
why?
did it, right?
But what's
So
stopping you?
what stopped me from like changing the homepage is this kind of belief that even though like 90% of my stuff is weddings, I really enjoy like the other stuff better. Like I love it when people use it for birthdays and celebrations of life and things like that. So like I've always wanted to,
You can have that, fine. Put those
yeah,
on any pages
right,
off of the home page. But your
yeah,
homepage, I don't need to tell you what 80/20 is, right?
right, right, yeah. So low hanging fruit is kind of telling
Low
stories.
hanging fruit is give people what they want when they come there. I mean, we
Okay.
could go into all kinds of cool optimization on SEO and ads and whatever, but I feel like that's unnecessary. Let's get this main thing out of the way, and then we can optimize and do all this cool stuff. Like, you don't even need someone like me to tell you this. You can interview any random woman who's planning a wedding, and she'll tell you that too, right?
Mhm. Right. And then going back to the whole kind of elevating others. So like one thought, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not, was to talk to like other storytellers and kind of ask them the question that I asked you, which was, if you wanted to honor somebody, like what would you say? But I think like everybody's gonna say the same thing, share your favorite
Oh, but you
story.
should answer that too. What would you say? I mean, even though you're selling a physical rented product, that still ties in because the guests that are using this, they're all trying to think of something clever to say. So you're
Yeah.
helping the guest, and then the wedding planner could link to your thing saying like, hey, if you want to, you're sending out this like, hey, we're 3 weeks away or excited to meet everybody. And if you're like nervous about how to dance or give a toast or like whatever it is, like, here's something that might help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a great SEO thing because the whole point of SEO is say something so good people will link to it,
Right.
which you don't have.
And,
Yours is just basically a brochure. No one's going to link to that.
right. Yeah. And I do like the idea about asking wedding planners kind of, the unique things that they've seen at weddings. I think that's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
And that's so easy to do. It costs you nothing. I don't see how it can't work. It ties in with your value proposition, which you have in the product, but it's not visible on your website. And everything comes to the website. So this seems like the most obvious place to put the effort. That's where when you talk about the door hinge thing where you get leverage, this is where your hinge is right here. These
Right.
pages right here. This seems like that's why it's low hanging fruit, right? Because it's an
Yeah.
obvious optimization and it's where all the traffic's coming through.
And so I would try to seek out, I guess, the popular wedding planners that had big followings or had big
And we
customers.
start with the mid-sized ones, ideally with the ones who have already experienced this. I mean, sure, you have a list of all the customers you've had before, and it could be whoever's doing the planning, the bride herself or wedding planner. I feel like that's a stronger place to start because then you're starting from an existing connection instead of like, oh, here's some vendor trying to interview me. They're probably trying to sell me on their thing.
Right. Right. Okay. I like that.
Yeah, let's do that, and then keep me posted. And I'm pretty sure you'll have a much better result than what you have now. And I'd love
Okay.
to see the stats. I mean, yeah, then open your analytics. Tell me that. So that's the thing. Like to the original question at the beginning of this, you already told me kind of what the strategy was, but I feel like unless we have a proper test using the components that we know we need, right now it's just hypothesizing.
Right.
I feel like you're sitting on a treasure trove of all these amazing stories, and for some reason they're just hidden from the website, basically.
Yeah, and I think part of my thing is I don't, like I talk to customers beforehand, don't really talk to them after the fact that much.
Oh,
And
that's a huge miss.
yeah, and they leave all these stories, but I don't, I listen to snippets as part of the editing process, but I don't listen to the stories.
Have you heard all the stuff about strategy, like the big brands like FedEx technically ships packages around in these trucks and they have airplanes, but what they really sell is peace of mind, right? I FedExed it. Oh, thank goodness it's not going to get lost. It's not the freaking post office, right? Or, Nike technically sells plastic, rubber, and leather made in Vietnam or whatever. But what they're really selling is, hey, you're an athlete too, right? And so you're technically selling these vintage phones that get shipped back and forth that record video, or audio. But what you're really selling is encapsulating authentic memories, right? So if you go for what you're really selling, how does that change what would be shown here on the site? You wouldn't be showing just pictures of the vintage phones then, would you? Like Nike. Nike doesn't just show pictures of the shoe. What do they show? They tell all the stories.
Right,
Here's some fat kid who was obese and now he's running a 5K.
right.
It
And
inspires you, right? It's like, oh, that's so cool. I want to go out and work out now, right?
yeah,
I'm not inspired. When I see this stuff, I'm not inspired. I'm just like, oh, they're trying to sell their thing.
and it's interesting because I like put a bunch of the recordings out there and Joan kind of like listened to them and posted them. And like she picked up on stuff that I had never realized was there.
Put it up there because these women that are planning, imagine they were like at the decision stage of, do I want to buy this or not? if they could see, oh, here's the kinds of things that I could get out of my guests, and they're starting to think about that. I bet you, if I was one of these girls, I'd be clicking. I'd be listening to so many of these stories. Maybe they're categorized. These ones are funny. These ones are like, I don't know what the way that, I would just be fascinated by all of that.
Yeah.
And then the more, I bet you anyone who listens to like 10 plus stories is very likely to, okay, I need to get this thing.
Right.
The number of stories they listen to is going to be a pretty clear indicator if they're going to buy the thing or not, right?
Yeah. And do you
You
think
don't have anything like that for me to consume.
right. And if it wasn't, like people are used to going to a web page and like playing all these videos, but if it's
Yeah,
just audio clips, I mean, is that
it's still cool. You could
yeah,
AI generate a little thumbnail on top of it, right?
right?
Or show a picture, with their permission of I mean, ideally you want to have it of that person, but you don't. So just have it of like that couple's wedding.
Right.
That's already a way. I mean, I feel like this is such low hanging fruit. Your website sucks so bad that almost
Right.
anything that has real stories in it is going to be an improvement. This is fantastic. And
Yeah.
somehow you're still selling $700,000 a year with a website like this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
true. That's why you're smiling. It's true, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, I think about that a lot, that I'm leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even that. It's like you're denying these women an amazing experience because they don't even realize what's possible.
Right.
I gave it to you with tough love.
No, I appreciate. No, it's great. I appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, it's interesting because on the one hand, like heard it all before, but it's also so very true and so very
So we agree, right?
yeah,
I mean,
totally.
this is like a 101 strategy thing. We agree. Now we've got Joan on this call. The question is if Joan understands this, Joan, can you implement this on behalf of Allah? Do you understand what we're trying to do? So then Allah doesn't have to do anything. You implement this, and then Allah can go interview some of these other people. Now there's more stuff for you to work with, right? But I imagine there's already a lot of stuff that you don't. I mean, yes, we want to do like the Wedding Memories podcast or whatever it is, right? But you can still do all this other stuff now if you understand and agree with what we're saying.
Yeah, definitely. I feel
Okay.
like the stories need to come out. Alan and I would sometimes chat about, this particular client's stories. Like, what was going
Yeah.
on with
I imagine you have some.
this? Yeah,
I remember that one
exactly.
time when, this one thing happened, the guest got drunk and jumped in the pond. I don't know, whatever it is, right? There's all these stories, right?
Yes, and I tell Ala, I get invested in these stories, and they're very emotional, and
Yeah.
you're learning about real lives and how people are connecting, and I think those stories really need to come out.
Yeah.
I agree,
And
totally.
the couple had a challenge and, the guy went off to the army, but then he came back and later he was able to, and then they got back together again. And then, you have testimonials, that's not the same thing.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do that. And it sounds like Joan is on board and she says there's no blocker. So you had a blocker a lot, but it doesn't even matter because as long as Joan knows what to do, we're good. And let's check back in a month and see where we're at.
Okay. I love it.
All right. There's nothing stopping us from doing this.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, then, right, Joan?
Okay.
Nothing stopping us from doing this. Okay, so let me know in 1 month how we're doing.
Okay.
All right. June 1st, Joan, do you agree to send me an update on how we're doing?
Yeah, sure.
So based on that update, we'll have a little call and talk about what's next. Then we'll
Okay.
actually do some optimization, which is what I wanted to do, but I feel like we have to do this thing first before we can do the stuff that I like to do. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
You don't need
Okay.
SEO, okay? That's not the issue. The website redesign, you don't need any of that kind of stuff.
Meaning,
There's no technical thing that you need right now.
right. It's
There's
just
no fancy optimization. I'm a world-class optimizer.
mhm,
There is no need for me yet.
right, because it's all about putting the stories on there
You
and
haven't even done the basic thing. Yeah.
yeah, right. All right.
All right. Was this valuable?
It was very valuable. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Dennis.
Yeah.
And Joan, you and I can maybe we should talk tomorrow if you have time or
yeah. Tomorrow, same time.
All right.
Okay.
You guys coordinate, but keep me posted or ask if you have questions along the way, all right?
okay, sounds
And
good.
then Zoom will send this out to us when the thing is, takes a few minutes, but then you can go over these different parts, especially Joan, because Joan, we're counting on you to do this, right? So if you don't understand any component here, you need to speak up and ask.
Oh, sure. I will
Okay.
ask. Yeah,
Okay. Don't be shy.
but I got it so far.
You know what we need to do, It's easy to be comfortable and do nothing. because you still have some sales, but you can do so much better.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dennis. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome, Alaa. Awesome, Joan. See ya.
Thank you, Dennis.